What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Today we'll talk about training theory. Let's get it popping. In order to enhance our athletic performance, there are kind of three main steps that we need to follow. First of all, we've got to stress the body, okay? Stimulate or stress it there, okay? And due to that stress there, our body responds in a certain way, and then it will adapt to that stimulus there in order for us to better handle the stress or exercise the next time we would encounter it. And in order to help our bodies adapt properly to the stresses imposed upon it, we need to make sure that we create the proper environment so that our bodies respond in a correct way to enhance performance. Okay, and this is very important here in strength training. And the things we need to focus on here when trying to enhance our adaptations are going to be number one, we need to focus on the stimulus and the magnitude of that stimulus, or how much we are overloading our bodies. Number two, we need to be aware of accommodation, which is another fancy term for plateauing in our adaptations there. Okay? We need to make sure that our adaptations are specific to the sports that we are preparing for, and we need to make sure that our adaptations, they're individualized based on the particular athletes that we're working on. And we'll talk about each of these four factors there throughout this PowerPoint slide set. There are three levels or categories of adaptation that occur from the exercise bouts that we perform there. Number one are going to be the primary positive adaptation. Basically, this is the main change that we want to see in our body, okay, due to our exercise bout. So for example, if I'm lifting weights, okay, many of our goals with our athletic teams, the main reason to lift weights are in order to get stronger. So we lift weights and we're hoping to see the positive effect of getting stronger. What secondary positive adaptations are is the adaptations that we're not necessarily trying to get, but it's a beneficial effect due to performing that particular exercise bout. So for example, when we lift weights, although the primary goal is to get stronger, a great side effect from getting stronger is that our bone density will also increase. And bone density increasing is important because stronger bones means that they are less likely to break. So again, while lifting weights, the main goal is to get stronger oftentimes for lifting weights. A good side effect of that there is that bone density will increase. Now, while there are positive secondary adaptations, there are also some adaptations that are negative, okay? Meaning that we perform this exercise bout, and unfortunately, there's a negative consequence to performing that exercise bout, okay? And one possible one is if you do a ton of lifting weights there, aerobic endurance performance may suffer if we lift too much. And that's mainly due to probably the theoretical ceiling of our recovery capacities, meaning that in our entire day, there's theoretically only a maximal amount of exercise that we can perform and that we can adequately recover from. So for example here, let's say if I'm fresh, I can normally run for 2 hours. Let's say I could have a good 2-hour running workout and that would be great. If I lifted weights for 1 hour, that means I have to still recover from lifting weights and then also spend some time running. Okay. So if I need to spend some of my recovery capacities towards recovering from lifting, I can't spend as much of my recovery capacities to recovering from the running exercise bout. Okay. So therefore, because I have to focus on both lifting weights and running in a specific day there, aerobic endurance performance may suffer on the days when I lift weights just because my body has a limited amount of capacity to recover from that lifting bout. Okay. This would be a good slide for you or chart to be able to recognize and understand some of the different adaptations that occur to our bodies when we perform different types of training. So on the left column there, you'll see the variable. Okay. Middle column looks at resistance training, meaning lifting weights there. And on the right column there is going to be our aerobic endurance training. So if we are trying to increase the size of muscle fibers. Resistance training, okay, will lead to an increase in the size of our muscle fibers, versus aerobic endurance training really doesn't change muscle fiber size. If we're trying to increase the total number of muscle fibers, notice resistance training and aerobic training don't change that. So let's say, for example, let's say I had 100 muscle fibers in my biceps. Okay. No amount of resistance training or aerobic endurance training will allow me to get like 200 muscle fibers in my biceps. So through resistance training, I can increase the size of my muscle fibers in my biceps, but I can't change the total number of muscle fibers. If my goal is to enhance movement speed, okay, resistance training oftentimes will lead to an increase in movement speed because resistance training also focuses on lifting heavy weights and trying to move explosively. Okay. If you're just focused on more endurance training, that's probably not going to enhance movement speed. It could enhance movement speed maybe at long durations, but is not going to really enhance maximal movement speed. Strength, okay, resistance training is going to enhance that. Aerobic capacity, though, resistance training is not a good modality to enhance aerobic capacity. If you want to enhance aerobic capacity, focus on aerobic endurance training. Anaerobic capacity, though, is better done through performing resistance training. So basically, the adaptations, okay, or the variables that we're looking at enhancing there, make sure you choose the training modality that's going to better enhance those specific characteristics. In order to challenge our bodies to get better, to get stronger, faster, in better shape there, we've got to have an adequate stimulus there, and the magnitude of it, okay, or how much stimulus we have has to be sufficient enough to create an overload, okay, meaning more challenging than what our bodies are used to, okay. And we can overload our bodies there in a couple different ways. Number one there is we can increase the training load, either by increasing the intensity, okay, or increasing the volume. A couple examples of increasing intensity would be lifting heavier weights. That would be increasing intensity. Another way to increase intensity would be to run at faster speeds. Okay, that would be increasing intensity. Okay. Another example might be jumping higher. Jumping higher there would be increasing intensity. Okay. Another way we can increase training load is increasing volume. Volume could be performing more reps. It could be increasing the amount of time that you perform a set. So for example, let's say you were doing squats. Instead of your squat set taking 10 seconds to complete, maybe it takes 20 seconds to complete. Okay. So that would be increasing volume there. Another thing for volume would be increasing the amount of distance ran or swam or biked. Okay. Those would all be examples of increasing training load. Another way that we can enhance performance, though, is create some variety in our training program. Here's a good example of that. Okay, here's a flat bench press. To change it up and make it a little bit, bring some more variety into it, maybe make it an incline bench press. Okay, so those are a few different ways that we can stimulate or overload the body to enhance performance. Now, the level of stimulus that an exercise bout causes our body there, we kind of can classify into three different types of magnitudes or loads. Okay? One would be a stimulating session. This means the workout session, whether it be lifting weights or running, okay, is going to be more challenging than what your body is used to. Okay? So if it's more challenging there, it's going to be stimulating, meaning it's above your neutral level or your baseline level there. If the amount of training load there is neutral, meaning the amount of training you did is about on par with what you normally do, okay, that means you would maintain your performance level, okay, neutral level there. And then detraining there is the amount of stimulus there or training load is going to be less than what you are used to, okay, and that would be below neutral level. So here's an example of that. Let's say that the maximum amount of weight you can lift on a bench press is 300 pounds. Okay? If I wanted to stimulate my body there, to try to make my body stronger there, I might try to lift 305 pounds for 1 rep. Okay, so that would be stimulating my body to get better, making it more stressful than what my body is used to. Retaining would be I would try to lift 300 pounds for 1 rep in that workout. And that's because, again, if 300 pounds is the maximum amount of weight I can lift for one time, if I repeat that same weight for the same reps, that would be maintaining my fitness level there. Detraining would maybe, for example, instead of lifting 300 pounds for 1 rep, maybe in this workout here, I'm going to lift only 200 pounds for 1 rep. That would be a below neutral level stimulus, okay? And that would be classified as detraining. The reason we need to continue challenging our bodies during our workout sessions and gradually making things more and more stressful, whether it be increasing intensity, increasing volume, and or increasing variety there, is if we do the same thing every single workout sessions, we're going to reach a plateau, okay, or otherwise known as accommodation, meaning performance is going to plateau off or level off unless we make things more challenging. For example, let's say very first workout, I do bench press and I lift 100 pounds for 3 sets of 10 reps. If the next time I work out, I lift 100 pounds 3 times for 10 reps, and then the next workout session, 100 pounds 3 times for 10 reps on bench press, I'm not challenging my body to get better. Okay, so eventually, if I just keep doing that every single workout session, my performance will plateau off. I will accommodate to that training load. Okay, so that's why, again, I've got to make things more challenging so that I can continue to enhance performance. Okay, so basically, if I repeat the same training loads for the same volume, I will eventually plateau off. Okay, and the way we can modify those training programs I've discussed previously to help prevent that accommodation from happening. So number 1, quantitative, meaning I change the training loads, making them more challenging, again, increasing weight, increasing volume, okay, or increasing speeds. Or it could be qualitative changes there, again, changing the exercises. This example here looking at, okay, this person is performing a normal flat bench press. This one here is they're performing a bench press, okay, off of pins here. So again, changing the exercises, okay, that can help avoid your body from plateauing off or accommodating to those training loads. Now, in order to get the best adaptations to our training programs that will transfer over to our sports there, we need to make our training specific to the results that we want to see. Okay? So specificity is how well does our training lead to better performance? Okay? So for example here, if I get stronger on bench press, okay, we're hoping that that's going to lead to an increase in this person's shot put performance. And theoretically, that would make sense. Okay? If I'm able to press a heavier weight off my chest, okay, that looks pretty similar to trying to throw a shot put farther. In order to create training programs that are very specific and will help directly impact our performance in competitions, several different questions that we should consider. Okay? Number 1, which muscles or muscle groups are used in our actual competitions? So for example, if I'm an arm wrestler, okay, I probably want to get really strong in my arms. Okay? Do I use legs when I arm wrestle? Yes. Okay, but I probably use my arms more in arm wrestling than my legs. So therefore, I should probably focus more of my training on training arms and probably less on training legs. On the flip side there, okay, if I'm a distance runner here, okay, if I'm a distance runner, my legs are going to probably be more important than my arms. So I should probably train my legs a lot more if I want to be a great distance runner and train my arms somewhat, but much less compared to training my legs. Number 2, which muscle fibers are primarily used in my particular events? Okay. Am I an explosive athlete over very short durations, like a shot putter, okay, where the main muscle fibers I predominantly use are going to be type 2 muscle fibers? Okay. Or am I a more distance runner, like a marathon runner, where I predominantly use type 1 muscle fibers to be successful in that particular sport. So choosing exercises that will enhance type 1 or type 2 muscle fibers is dependent based on our sports. Number 3, what is the range of motion required to be successful in my sports? For example, gymnasts need to be very flexible in order to do things like the splits, okay, having great shoulder flexibility, okay, in order to do things on the rings, okay, and on the bars. So they require a lot more range of motion in their joints compared to an arm wrestler. Arm wrestler does need to be flexible, but maybe not nearly as flexible as a gymnast, okay, especially in their legs. Arm wrestler does not need to be very flexible with their legs. Number 4, what are the directions of force required in our sports? If I'm a sprinter, I'm mainly going to focus on horizontal forces. Probably very little emphasis on vertical forces in my training. However, a basketball player, yes, they have to produce horizontal forces when running, but they also got to be able to jump in the air. So therefore, a basketball player is going to probably spend more time focusing on vertical forces, okay, than a sprinter will. Number 5 what are the movement velocities used in our particular competition? Okay. So for example, a baseball player can throw that ball very quickly, and their shoulder joint is going to move very quickly when they throw a baseball. If I'm trying to strengthen my shoulder joint in the weight room using traditional exercises like bench press and lateral raises, rows, things along those lines, I'm not going to be able to mimic the speeds that are required to throw a baseball with my shoulder in the weight room. I'm just not going to be able to do that there. So I probably shouldn't try to mimic my lifting exercises, should not try to mimic a throwing motion, because the speeds that I'm going to throw that ball at are not nearly going to be as fast in the weight room as they are by actually throwing the ball. And number 6 what are the arousal levels in competition? Okay? Meaning how psyched up or how motivated are we when we actually compete? In training, we're probably not going to get our motivational levels up to that significant level of arousal that we will see in competitions. But finding ways in training maybe to increase the arousal levels might help transfer better to the actual competitions. This slide shows ways that we can make our training there more specific and how that leads to better performance depending on the level of athlete you're working with, as well as what things we are trying to train for. So for example here, in this top table, this is looking at shot putters. And the second row looks at these shot putters whose maximal throw falls between these certain distances. So someone who can throw between 20 to 21 meters is probably the most successful professional shot putters in the world, versus someone who can only throw maximally between 14 to 15 meters is probably a novice when it comes to throwing the shot put. And what they did is they looked at shot put performance and they looked at how well these performances correlated with different exercises. So how well does it correlate to throwing a 9 kilogram shot put, which is a little bit heavier than the shot puts that they throw in actual competition. 10 kilogram shot put, same thing. Okay. Also looked at correlations between shot put performance and squats, as well as vertical jump. So what you'll notice here is the more specific the exercise is to actually throwing the actual shot put, the more strongly correlated it's going to be. So for example, throwing these shot puts that are a little bit heavier are going to correlate better to actual shot put performance compared to squats and vertical jump. How we read these numbers is the closer these numbers are to the number 1, the more strongly these performances are correlated. So having a correlation in performance above 0.7 is going to be a lot better than having correlation performances that are less than that. So throwing a shot put, 9 kilogram shot put, notice those correlations are between 0.7 and 0.9 with these distances, meaning that if I get better at throwing a 9 kilogram shot put, I will probably get better at throwing farther in my actual shot put distance. Now, with heavier shot puts, still follows a similar pattern, but I want you to notice this one down here. Okay? So someone who's a decent shot put thrower can throw about 16 to 17 meters. But the correlation in throwing that 10 kilogram shot put is less, okay, than that correlation of throwing a 9 kilogram shot put. Okay? And the reason a drop in that correlation is probably due to people only being able to throw that shot put 16 to 17 meters aren't as strong, okay, compared to those who can throw that shot put 20 to 21 meters. So basically what this is saying here is that person that can throw the shot put 16 to 17 meters probably could benefit from more strength development than they could from throwing an actual 10 kilogram shot put. And we see that in this squat category. So for example here, for a person throwing that shot put 16 to 17 meters, okay, their squat is very strongly correlated to their actual shot put performance. Even better correlation than throwing the 10 kilogram shot put. So basically, people throwing 16 to 17 meters in the shot put probably would want to spend more of their training focused on squatting than they would actually throwing a 10 kilogram shot put. Okay. Same thing for 17 to 18 meter shot put throwers. Same thing. However, what you'll notice though, as we become a better and better shot put thrower, the correlation between squat strength and shot put performance actually starts to decrease. Drops off a little bit in this 18 to 19 meter category, and it significantly drops off in the very elite level of throwing the shot put. So what is this saying here? What this is not saying is, it's not saying that these shot putters should stop squatting. Okay? It's not saying that there. All what it's saying though is saying that we should probably spend less of our training time squatting and more of our training time throwing shot puts that are a little bit heavier than our normal shot put. Lastly, looking at vertical jump performance. Okay? Vertical jump, unlike squat and throwing those other shot puts, vertical jump performance is not very strongly correlated to shot put performance. Okay? At best here, okay, we're reaching a correlation of 0.566. Now, does this mean that shot putters should never vertical jump? No, they should do some vertical jump training, but they should probably spend less time vertical jump training and more time getting stronger, more time actually throwing different shot puts. Down here at the bottom here, what this is looking at rugby players. And if we focus on different movements that occur in rugby, such as accelerating, cutting, shuffling, tackling, wrestling, and passing there, these give some different general recommendations on different exercises to focus on here that might help lead to better performance as a rugby player. Okay? And specifically here, they go from more general exercises to more specific, specialized exercises. And the ways we can oftentimes use this chart might be is we would use this chart to help plan the exercises we use in our training program when we're far away from our rugby matches. And then as we get close to our actual rugby season, we start to make our exercises more specific to the training that we're going to see during actual rugby season. So, for example, I'll just go through one of these rows here. Okay. So if I want to improve my acceleration, okay, my general preparation exercises for this when we're far away from the season, meaning we might want to spend more time here spent on bench presses, chin-ups, okay, maybe some squats there. As we get closer to the season, we should make our training more specific to what we're going to see when we're actually practicing rugby and we're actually competing in rugby. So as we get closer to the season, maybe spend more time on trap bar jumps and more time on speed squat with bands. As we get really close to the season, maybe spend more time on resisted sprints and bounds. And then during competition season, we should spend the majority of our time practicing rugby and at rugby matches. Now, again, what this is not saying, it's not saying during the season we can't do bench press or chin-ups. That is not what it's saying at all. All it's saying here is that we probably want to spend more of our time early on in the off season on getting stronger, and then as we get closer to the season, then spend more time on doing weighted jumps there, okay, and then doing sprints and jumps and stuff like that as we get closer to the season. So spending a little bit of time doing each thing during each phase of the off season, okay, would probably be beneficial, but we might do more volume doing different exercises depending where we're at in the training cycle. With our training plans there, while it can be challenging to do when we have large groups of people, we can try to individualize our training programs depending what type of athletes we are looking at. So for example, a training program for a sprinter who is like not done any strength training at all is going to look much different than a training program there for a sprinter who has spent a lot of time lifting weights. Okay. So with this person here, okay, who's never lifted weights before, okay, we need to get them stronger to sprint. We might need to spend more time with them lifting weights to get stronger so their muscles are able to handle the higher speeds of sprinting. Versus someone here, like this person, who's already very strong, we can spend some time lifting weights there, but we might want to individualize their training program and spend more time with them actually sprinting and probably relatively less time in the weight room. So as we progress our training programs there throughout the off season, into in season and whatnot there, we need to look at adapting our workloads throughout that off season periods. Okay? When we adapt our workloads, there needs to be a progressive nature in it. Okay? We're either progressing in reps, maybe we're progressing in load, okay? Or we might be making some sort of changes or progressions in volumes. Okay? Our workloads we choose, okay, we need to have a continuous plan in place, okay? There probably should not be a ton of gaps in the training year where we're not doing any training at all. Maybe during the early off season, we have time to rest and recover there. That would be important. But our training should be continuous in nature, okay, but should adapt depending on the part of the training year that we're looking at. And our training workloads should adapt specifically to what we're trying to accomplish depending on the different parts of the training year. Okay. So, for example here, okay, we've got parts of the training year, okay, along the bottom. Okay. So we've got hypertrophy phase, hypertrophy meaning getting bigger, especially muscle size. Okay. We usually follow that with a strength and a power phase. These means that the weights are going to get heavier and the movement speeds are going to get faster. Peaking phase oftentimes means that we're going to look at our fastest speeds and or possibly our heaviest weights. Okay? And then recovery phase would be oftentimes after we're done with the season. We need to drop back on our workloads there in order to help our bodies to recover for our next training cycle. Okay? What I want you to notice here, okay, especially in terms of lifting weights here, okay, during the hypertrophy phase, we're going to spend a lot of time on volume, meaning we're going to do a lot more reps, okay, but our intensity level, okay, of our exercises when we lift weights is going to be relatively lower. So lots more reps there with relatively lower weights. As we shift phases there, notice that our total volume there of lifting weights there is going to start to decrease. Okay? And as the total number of reps start to decrease, our weights there, our intensity is going to increase. And we keep following that there until we get to our major competitions. This could be a conference championship track meet, maybe NCAA regionals, maybe NCAA nationals. Okay? Maybe this is the playoffs there in football. When this is happening there, notice that the volume, okay, or repetitions are at their lowest here, and our intensity levels are going to be at their largest, okay? But then there's a short drop off there before we reach our major competitions, okay? That's going to be considered a tapering period. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on in this PowerPoint slide set. Now, along with our lifting volume and our lifting intensities there, we also got our technique or skill work. Okay? Think of these like practicing your actual sport. So baseball would be hitting baseballs, throwing. Notice during the hypertrophy phase, since we're spending a ton of time lifting weights and effort and energy, we don't have enough recovery capabilities there to recover from all the lifting weights volume that we're doing to spend a ton of time on technique work. Okay? So the amount of time we're spent practicing should be relatively low during the hypertrophy phase. But as we get closer to the season, okay, and our lifting volume starts to decrease, we can start to increase the amount of time spent at practices. Okay? And then we finally get to our season and we're spending a lot more time practicing. Okay? And then likewise, just as there's a drop off during a tapering period to maximize our performance before major competitions, we might see a small tapering period in our technique work as well, meaning practices might get shorter. Okay? The skills that you do at practice can be very game specific. Okay? And then after the season is done, after your major competitions, volume of practice is going to drop off. And then we repeat the process over and over again. In order to enhance our training so that we continue to grow and get better, there's two generalized theories of training that we often can use as models when we look at our training plans. We've got the one-factor theory, otherwise known as supercompensation, and then we got the two-factor theory called the fitness fatigue model. We'll talk about each of those in the next few slides. Starting off with the one-factor theory, okay, on this y-axis here, okay, we're looking at fitness level, meaning at any one period of time, how well can we perform a particular activity, whether it be lifting weights, whether it be competing in our actual sport, whether it be sprinting, something along those lines. Okay? So before training, we've got our baseline level of fitness. Okay? During training, our fitness goes down, meaning our ability to be successful performing a particular skill is going to decrease. And that makes sense because you're getting tired. For example, maybe at the beginning of my lift, I could bench press 300 pounds, but after doing 3 tough sets there of bench press, I might only be able to do 250 pounds at bench press at the end of my workout because, again, I'm tired. I've gone through training, I get tired, so my fitness level is a lot lower at the immediately end of a training session than it was at the beginning of a training session. However, after several hours, our body is able to recover from that training session, okay, over the course of hours or even days. Okay, our body gets back up to its baseline level. And then it will continue to improve, okay, which is so-called supercompensation from our baseline level. Okay. So meaning, let's say, for example, I did a bench press workout, okay, on Monday. Okay. I got done with my bench press workout on Monday. Okay. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, okay, allowed my body to recover. Okay. And now I'm better at bench press than I was on Monday. And then Friday, let's say, this is Friday here, and Friday I do another bench press workout. Okay, I am now stronger, my fitness level is stronger than I was before. Okay, so therefore, if I keep repeating this over and over again, where I challenge my body, break it down, okay, and then continue to push the weights more and more, theoretically it could continue to get stronger and stronger and stronger over time. Now, one other thing to note here, okay. Our body does get better, fitness level does get better, but if I don't return to that same workout soon enough, my body will get back down to its baseline level. So again, using my same analogy, let's say I bench press on Monday, okay, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. At Friday here, I'm ready to go. But let's say I don't bench press on Friday, okay? Instead, I'm off the entire next week, okay? So I don't do bench press again until 2 weeks later. Okay? By that time, okay, all the benefits that I previously had from bench press have dropped back off. So now my baseline level is back to where it was before. And we don't want to see that there. So while, yes, you need time to recover in between workouts, you can't give yourself too much time in between workouts there, causing your performance to drop back down to baseline levels. Here's an example of a good way of giving your body enough rest time to see the enhancements in fitness level if we properly space out workouts over time. So again, bench press, okay? Initially I'm fatigued. After several days, I recover and I supercompensate. Now I do bench press again, okay? I'll fatigue my body, okay? But then allow my body to recover, and now my bench press is even heavier. So I'll lift even heavier weights, cause my body to get tired, but then my body will continue to enhance. So basically, over time there, we should see an enhancement in your performance. The two-factor theory, though, explains these enhancements in performance looking at two different factors. We're looking at fitness there and fatigue. Okay? So basically, again, during a workout there, we accumulate fatigue. Okay? So at the bottom here, this means we have fatigued our body, so that means we're not going to be able to do as well. Okay? Our fitness here, okay, what fitness means is what our theoretical ceiling would be if we were to be fully recovered at this time. So meaning, after a hard workout there, theoretically, if I was fully recovered, how well could I actually do at this time? Okay. So now, due to the fatigue, though, my actual performance, which is in blue there, okay, is going to be depleted there after the workout. But again, by allowing my body to recover, okay, my fatigue will start to dissipate. Okay, my fitness will continue to rise, reach that supercompensation level, and therefore my performance there will start to get better. Now, our maximum level of fitness, okay, will eventually start to drop off. Okay, and while it's dropping off a little bit there, fatigue is continuing to dissipate even more and more, meaning that my actual performance will continue to rise there. Okay, so while my maximum fitness level will decrease, my actual ability to perform at any given period of time will increase a little bit after that point. Okay, but again, we don't want to let this happen forever and let fatigue completely dissipate, because if we let fatigue completely dissipate, my performance will eventually drop off there and get back to baseline levels. So again, I want to make sure that I space out my workouts properly so that I can continue to enhance performance over time. As I mentioned previously, that there might be a short tapering or peaking period before major competitions. Again, that might be the playoffs, that might be to the conference championship meet or the NCAA championship meet. What happens during this tapering or peaking period is that we decrease the training load, meaning intensity levels, whether it be decrease in weight used, maybe decrease in speed used. Okay. Might choose to decrease that, or we might choose to decrease the total amount of volume being performed, meaning shortening practice sessions, decreasing the number of reps done in the weight room there. What this does is allows the fatigue to subside, leading to better performance. Going back to our previous slide, allowing fatigue to dissipate, okay, so that performance can be enhanced. Okay. Now the thing about tapering and peaking, we can't maintain that for long periods of time. 1 week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks maximum there. So we can't always use tapering or peaking. Okay. So we got to continue to challenge our bodies often enough there, but there might be specific times in the training cycle where we're really trying to maximize our performance for specific competitions. Now, along with changing our training loads, when we taper or peak, okay, we've kind of got 3 different categories of people on how they can actually mentally handle the stress of the actual competition there. And 3 categories that you could classify these people in is we've got our athletes who are bloomers, athletes who are benders, and athletes who are breakers. Okay. During these high levels of competition, okay, there's a lot of stress there, whether it's self-imposed stress, okay, maybe outside stresses, okay, that can affect an athlete there. Okay. Both good and bad. Okay. So our bloomers are those athletes there who like the pressure that comes with high-level competitions. And that actually brings out their best on the biggest stages. So these people might perform decently well during the regular season, but come playoffs or postseason, they perform at their very best. So these will be considered our bloomers. On the other side are our breakers. Okay, these people might perform better in the regular season, But when it comes to high-level competitions, they might fold under that pressure because they don't have the mental skills to be able to adequately handle those pressures that come with those high-level competitions. In the middle there, we got the benders there. These are the intermediate people. They perform roughly the same, okay, whether it be during the regular season or during the postseason there. So enhancing our mental performance there and how we can handle the stresses outside of the normal physical stresses is going to be important to our athletes being able to perform at their best at these major competitions. Now, our training performance across our training season there, it's very complex in nature because improving one factor in our training may result in an increase or decrease in another factor. Okay? So for example, maybe during the early off-season phase there, let's say you're very out of shape and you need to enhance your aerobic capacity there as a runner. Okay? If I'm focusing on trying to gain mileage there, okay, understand that my focus on spending a lot of time on running there to improve my aerobic capacity might mean that my strength and speed gains at the same time might be blunted. Meaning I might not see as good of speed or strength gains there due to spending a ton of time running, trying to enhance my aerobic capacity. And again, because of this here, focus trying to maximize aerobic capacity, strength, speed capacity, okay, and other capacities there all at the same time, okay? It's hard to do that there. So that's why, and that's mainly due to that theoretical finite recovery capabilities that our bodies have, okay? So we can only recover from a certain amount of things, okay, at any one time. So at different parts of the training year, we might choose to do more volume, focus on aerobic capacity, maybe less time on strength capacity. And at other times of the year, we might focus more on strength and less on aerobic capacities. So your training program should be aware of that there and should accommodate the total amount of training volume that you're performing, knowing that our body can only recover from so much. Okay. In addition here, okay, physics may play a role in increase in one factor might lead to a decrease in another. For example, let's say a distance runner gains 10 pounds of muscle in their upper body. Okay? While that distance runner might look a lot more jacked, by having to carry around 10 more extra pounds in their upper body, which is not doing a lot of the work there that's needed as a distance runner, someone that's gained 10 pounds as a distance runner might actually run slower. And that's because they have to carry around 10 extra pounds. They're not directly leading to running faster there. So that's why, again, while it's important to do some strength training in upper body with distance runners because you use your shoulders when you run, you probably don't want to gain a ton of weight in your upper body as a distance runner because by carrying more weight, that means your running speeds are probably going to be slower. Another thing to understand about the complexity with each individual athlete there in their training program is there's a lot of different things that happen every year there that might lead to better performances in some years versus the others. For example, let's take a look at Carl Lewis here. So Carl Lewis here, okay, when he was in 1984, he ran the 100-meter dash in 9.99. Okay. And as you can see, okay, roughly every year there, he got a little bit and a little bit faster every year, leading to his best time in 1991. Now, I'm not sure why he only improved by like 1/100th of a second most years there, and all of a sudden he dropped 0.6 of a second in 1991. It may have been due to maybe he was less stressed by outside factors. Maybe he didn't get injured as much, okay, in 1980 or 1991. Maybe his social life or he had a better support system with his family. Whatever the case may be, everything came to a peak there in 1991 where he had his best performance in the 100-meter dash. Likewise, maybe things were really bad in 1986. Maybe he had more injuries. Maybe his nutrition wasn't as dialed in. Maybe that's why his best time in 1986 dropped off. Likewise, looking at Usain Bolt there, okay, notice, okay, he's 10:03. He dropped his time significantly in 1 year between 2007 and 2008. Okay, he essentially enhanced his performance a ton compared to Carl Lewis. Okay, in 1 year during this time. Okay, Usain Bolt then got his best world record time there in 2009. Okay, but he didn't even approach these times here until he got back to 2012. So 4 years later was when he got even close to what his world record time was. But again, the reason why performance might not be at his absolute peak there every year is due to several different factors, okay? Some of them that are outside of our control. You can control training there, but you can't control outside stresses. Okay? Sometimes there, maybe you don't understand how your body responds to a specific training program until you actually do it. And maybe training is underutilized during that particular year. So again, training is very complex. You got to balance a bunch of different factors between the different training protocols you use, how much recovery you're allowing, and then dealing with the outside stresses. That's all I got. If you have any questions, let me know. Have a good day. Booyah.